sports fans. Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. It is continuously getting better and better each and every day of every week. And I'm so happy to be here with all of you guys. We got a stacked show here today. Lots to talk about here on the Snake Sports Talk Show live in Denver, wherever and however you may be watching and listening. Thanks for making us part of your day. Former MLB pitcher Jay Jackson in about a couple minutes. Then there's Eric Gordon Sr., father of Eric Gordon of the NBA and also owner of E3 Basketball Academy. And then finally, to end things, former NFL defensive tackle Pat Williams joins us. Lots of outrage, lots of reactions. We're here to talk about it here with you guys. So I'll start off with this. So the biggest thing that broke the internet, and I'm talking about all around, all on social medias. Like I said, you can like, follow, subscribe and onto our show. Keep up with it. But what broke out of the internet, of course, from last night into today. So the NFL's Pro Football Hall of Fame voting ended up getting casted, and Bill Belichick was snubbed as being a first ballot Hall of Famer. And everybody went nuts. They all went crazy. People are all outraged. But there's a few things that I want to point out here because I listened to every radio and television broadcast personality talking about the Bill Belichick situation. And many people feel outraged. They're throwing the chairs. They're it's crazy enough how things really just kind of set themselves in stone. But there's a few factors into Bill Belichick's resume to making into the Hall of Fame. And here's a few first reasons. So the obvious one is he's the most winningest coach in NFL history. Okay, right next to Don Shula. He's won 6 Super Bowls, all in New England. But what people don't tell you is a lot of the undercover stuff of what makes Bill Belichick and why this situation matters to so many people. Now remember, I have this same straining conversation as far as the tug of war that goes on with these baseball writers when it comes to the MLB Hall of Fame. And to me, they have a thing that's different than the NFL, and that's the moral clause, which I think is ridiculous in Major League Baseball. And because I'll tell you this, many people who honestly can sit here with a straight face and can tell me up front, I know he was a really good defensive third baseman, but Hall of Fame worthy that quickly, Scott Rowland. You really think that he deserved more of the Hall of Fame rights and the votes than Andrew Jones, Billy Wagner, and a lot of these other really good baseball players, even Jack Morris? Jack Morris couldn't even make the cut. So that was the part I really had a hard time with. And the reason, because this is where the morale clause comes in, because of the ongoing conversation of the PED steroid era from Barry Bonds to Rafael Palmeiro, Sammy Sosa, Roger Clemens, and all of them. But yet we have Jeff Bagwell in the Hall of Fame. It can't even be that crazy of a conversation. And so when it comes to Bill Belichick, these are the factors that I feel like are thrown in here with why he's not been in the Hall of Fame as of today. He is a Hall of Famer, period. Nobody could honestly sway you to believe you otherwise. But here's the factors of the reason why that I think he's not in is because, number one, do you know how many asterisks that he has next to his name on a lot of things? Deflategate, Spygate. Those are the things that I think is what is hindering this. Because number one, you have video footage of you filming a different team on the sideline. And listen, we've also had this conversation when it came to Jim Harbaugh and stealing signs at Michigan. And so we know with what this is. And yes, that can hinder somebody's career. However, it was not drastic to the point of like a shoeless Joe Jackson or a Pete Rose. Okay? None of that was even set in stone. The other thing, number two, the point is that Bill Belichick, is not really a personality. Okay? He's smart, understands defense, but he doesn't really have a personality that's likable or approachable. If you listen to executives, players, coaches, everybody who is all crossed paths with Bill Belichick, he's kind of angry. He's kind of pissed. Keeps his nose on the ground. And sometimes it turns a lot of people off. But it's Bill. But Bill is smart. Bill understands this. The third part is what he looked like recently after Tom Brady left New England. Because you got to remember, when Tom left, they had one playoff appearance with Mac Jones, and that was it. After that, they got steamrolled. They were not the same organization. They went downhill. They had Matt Patricia be the offensive coordinator after Josh McDaniels took the Raiders job. It was all going downhill from there. Drafting was piss poor outside of defense. Like you couldn't even get wide receiver help. You couldn't even figure out quarterback, let alone run game. So that's where I know that kind of hinders it. And I think the final thing is just what's happened as far as his tenure in North Carolina. You think Bill Belichick, the most success that he's had up into the NFL and the personality that he carries on to him, do you think that's going to translate to be likable in college? It's not. And I kind of feel bad for a lot of people that are North Carolina fans. And one of the biggest takeaways is that when you look at this, you also got to know too, this is also where he's got his young girlfriend and they're blasting up on the internet. They're on every hot trending topic. So I think that's where people kind of feel a little bit weirded on it. But the problem in this case scenario, and I thought Colin Cowherd put it together beautifully, is that when it comes to the voters' purposes, this is not a straightforward structure. It's not. Because I'll tell you why. Look at what our presidential election would look like every 4 years. You know how many times everybody filibusters about what the left, the right side does? And it's all just blown out of proportion. But here's what you got to understand, and this is where I felt with it. I don't talk politics a whole lot on this show, but this is where I feel with as far as voters, is that one, the reason Trump is in is because they needed to change. They needed an adjustment. They needed a restructurization. And yes, this stuff never, ever changes over time. It doesn't always change overnight. This is usually always a 4-year pack deal. Just like when you're rebuilding a team, a roster, it's always a 3 to 5 year build. So you cannot be caffeinated and impatient when things don't look like they're going to go your way. Okay? But the voting structure in our political parties, in our Hall of Fame voting, everywhere is not always straightforward. Because I can tell you today, with a straight face, Bill Belichick is a Hall of Famer. No question. But unfortunately today, he's not. And that's just today. But Bill will be in the Hall of Fame. You do not need to end up reacting. Like, I get it. Everybody's pissed. Everybody's not happy about this. But it should go to show, like, this is what it is. And it's unfortunate. But Bill, as you know, the asterisks in his name, with as far as all these situations, and maybe it's got some ties to Robert Kraft and Tom Brady. I don't know, but it could. And then on top of it, what he's done recently with New England, they've gone straight to the ground the minute that a lot of the important people in the building left. So, and he's not really a likable person, but he's very smart and people can respect him for that. So, and again, especially when it comes to the personalities, do you ever see Bill Belichick take an analyst job at ESPN or Fox or anywhere else? That's not his thing. So I understand. I understand the outrage. But I'm going to tell you, he's a Hall of Famer. No question. Because it's the same problem I always deal with Major League Baseball's Hall of Fame, their voting discussion. Because, yeah, it is an ongoing and it is a frustrating process. I don't know how in the world they honestly break this down. Seriously. It's crazy to me. So again, I think it's interesting. But again, Bill Belichick, this is not a punishment thing. Okay. I hope you all know that. It's not a punishment thing. And I also do think this was also a really good point, is because when you look at the voters' eligibility, right, it's like you're going to put a coach in before a player, and the player has to wait half a decade just to be able to be eligible for the Hall of Fame. It should be an even playing field on both players and coaches. Shouldn't be decided by one or the other, because if that's the case, go and look at Vince Lombardi and Bill Walsh and Joe Gibbs and Bill Parcells. But he has the resume. Okay, he was the right-hand man when it came to having a ferocious defense and winning championships with two of the New York Giants team with Bill Parcells. So again, I understand the outrage. I really do. But he is a Hall of Famer, period. That's my straightforward response. He will get into the Hall of Fame. He will. But just not today. Great show coming up around the corner. First off, up and on deck, Jay Jackson joining us. I'm really excited for this interview. I've been so happy to have the conversations with former baseball players because of, pitchers catchers report around the corner next month. And then not to mention, we got the new Hall of Fame group to discuss and what we could outlook for the 2026 season. So you don't want to miss it then. Eric Gordon Sr. and Pat Williams are going to be joining us here up onto the program as well. Well, folks, like we said, for 2026 is going to be low, fun, and I cannot wait for it all. Let's see. With the Super Bowl 49 nostalgic rematch between the Patriots and the Seahawks. We also got World Baseball Classic. We've got the FIFA World Cup. We've got Major League Baseball. Everything is hitting right now in 2026. And you don't want to miss out on the big opportunity that you can win with Payday Fantasy. Because Payday Fantasy, our proud partners here on the show, got you covered all day, all week, all year long with your go-to player prop pick'ems. All you got to do, go online, sign up, or download it on your mobile device through Google Play in the App Store, which is online right now. And when you sign up, free $5 entry just by choosing us. And then also, best of all, when you deposit, 100% match up bonus of up to $100 just by using the promo code SNAKE. So don't forget that. Use promo code SNAKE for the deposit matchup of up to $100, 100%. $5 free entry. You can't go wrong with that. You want to start off your 2026 right, Check it out with Payday Fantasy. Sign up, pick the player, pick the outcome, sit back and relax, enjoy some popcorn, and get paid with Payday Fantasy.
Looking for a show with the best takes and opinions? Want a show with the best coverage around the world of sports? Jam-packed with an all-star interview lineup? Then the best place to find it all, sports and entertainment, is right here. Join Jake Silva on the Snake Sports Talk Show, presented by SeatGeek and BetUS. Weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
With spring training around the corner, and we know we're coming to a close close with the NFL, with the Super Bowl, I'm excited for all of it. Monday, I had Brandon Finnegan on with us here on the program, talking a lot about the up-and-coming season, and joining us, former MLB pitcher Jay Jackson joins us here on the program. I asked this question on Monday because of the fact of next month is always the fun month because pitchers and catchers report start up. And that's when you know it's baseball season up from there. In your experience, in your tenure in the league, like what did that feeling look like for you when pitchers and catchers report came around and you were like, man, I am ready for the season to start?
It's probably the most exciting time of the year for me, honestly, when I was playing. That was probably the most favorite time because it was before the hitters got there, so you didn't have to worry about it. But also you got to be with all your boys and see who you're competing against and just see how much better everybody's gotten over the offseason. And you knew the season was about to start. So you knew it's almost true go time. So it was always the most fun, exciting time of the year for me.
So, kind of get in the nitty gritty. I started off the show with this. Now, right now, in the last couple of years, I mean, today is a heartbreaking day for a lot of people because the fact of Bill Belichick is not a first ballot Hall of Famer, which is crazy, but it's not to say he's not a Hall of Famer. He certainly is, but it just felt like today wasn't the day. But when I look at, because I had this straining type of tug of war when it came to the baseball writers, when it looked at the resume, the storyline, and what kind of person that you are, on everyday level when it came to the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. But this year, it's going to be a great class. The reason in which I felt this way was because of the year, and I have full respect for him. But Scott Rowland, when I looked at the lists of Andrew Jones, Billy Wagner, and a lot of these other guys who did build the resume, I was just questioning more of what was going through the minds of the baseball writers. And so I say this, there has to be a happy medium when it comes to coaches and the players with their year's eligibility. That's the number one thing. But I think this year's class, Carlos Beltran, Andrew Jones, Jeff Kent, I mean, I think this is a pretty good, decent class in my opinion.
No, it's definitely a great class. I mean, you look at some of the votes they've made over the years, the MLB Hall of Fame, just like, this year with Bill Belichick and the NFL Hall of Fame. This is probably the most shocking, interesting choice that I've ever seen on a Hall of Fame vote. I'm hoping that their reasoning behind it is that somebody's going to hire him to be a head coach again. And that's the only reason that they could have is because somebody's going to hire him to be a head coach, so he'll be re-eligible again. Because other than that, there's no reason Bill Belichick should not be in the Hall of Fame or a first ballot Hall of Famer. Everything you see about him is what a first ballot Hall of Famer is supposed to be about, right? So it's kind of that whole situation. But, with the MLB Hall of Fame committee, all the sports writers and things over the years, you kind of look at, Roger Clemens, Barry Bonds, the whole steroid era that they claim, they're not putting these guys in, right? So do they do the same with Bill Belichick since they don't make him a first ballot Hall of Famer, even though he is a Hall of Famer? Right. If they're trying to keep it as a precedent with kind of what MLB's always done, because that's the only other thing you can do, right? So for me, I mean, all the guys I just named for the MLB, I mean, they should be in the Hall of Fame too for me. Like, they have to be. Like, you look at their resumes, same thing. Like Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, like those are the two main guys you're like, resume-wise, regardless of what, like, if you think that they help that much to have those type of numbers, then okay. But realistically, like, playing baseball at the highest level is already tough enough. To put up even half of those numbers and guys are in the Hall of Fame, I think that definitely those guys deserve to be in there too. So that's my 2 cents on that. But it is what it is. You know, you live, you learn, you go forward the next day. And the Hall of Fame class we have this year is fantastic. I grew up watching Andrew Jones. Like, that was who I was an Atlanta Braves fan. I'm from Greenville, South Carolina. So we had the Greenville Braves. I watched him like when he came up through the minor leagues. So I wanted to always be an outfielder until I was a pitcher and had to transition. So I'm ecstatic for this Hall of Fame class. It's going to be a good one. It's going to be a lot of good speeches. There's been a lot of parties I've seen in different places for those guys celebrating them, and they should be celebrated. And I'm looking forward to seeing, like you said, hopefully Scott Rowland gets in next, because if Jeff Kent's in, I feel like Scott Rowland's got to get in too.
Well, and I think about it this way is like, you know, I think of guys like Jack Morris, who we know like back in the 80s when they were pitching in Detroit, he had such a great year. And then going into Minnesota, which really, you know, contributed much. I just look at the guys that I know that put in the body of work that even regardless of it, they left an impact, because baseball is a classic. It's a historic, nostalgic sport, because we've seen so many greats. And we watched, you know, the summer of '99. And it's like we watched the Bash brothers and you know, you look at Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire, and it was like we all knew what the state of baseball was in at this time. And it was like the viewership, the ratings, they weren't quite climbing higher until chicks dig the long ball. And then guys were just getting offensively aggressive and competitive. And then even pitching, for another thing, was also one of those things you just loved to watch. So,
100%. And like you see it, like all those guys, Mark McGwire included, Jose Canseco, all those guys, a lot of those pitchers from the era are suffering from it now, where they're not in the Hall of Fame, even though their resume stacked up to some of the guys that are in the Hall of Fame says that they deserve to be in there, right? So it's kind of a give and take, and hopefully Bill Belichick definitely doesn't have to go through this, and hopefully it's not that much of whoever the voters were that didn't, since they haven't come out and said who they were yet. Hopefully it's not that they have this much bias against him where it holds him out for even another year, honestly, because this makes no sense. But baseball-wise, like, hopefully, like I said, next year, I think Scott Rowland should be in. If Jeff Kent's setting the precedent, I think Scott Rowland's got to get in next year and see what the class is looking like for next year as well.
Yeah. So, you know, I was asking, so I've already asked two former major leaguers, Logan Morrison and Brandon Finnegan, this question.
My guys.
And yeah, they're the best.
Yeah, I played against Logan. I was teammates with both of them. Funny enough.
Wow, how about that? Oh, yeah, man, that's the best.
Yeah. So it's kind of a funny situation.
So the reason I asked this question because we know of right now the recent outrage. How are the Dodgers getting away with this, with these contracts and all the rest of it, right? And I looked at the Kyle Tucker contract from top to bottom, everything that was broken down. Jay, half the league could have made this deal, but yet, you know, people like it's like they are outraged. The Dodgers made this deal when it was 4 years, $240 million, when your former club, Toronto, offered him $350 million. And then the Phillies, they tried to land a long-term contract with Bo Bichette, and then he goes to New York. So it's like, to me, this is so doable in this league that a lot of it, if you're going to be outraged by an organization, what you should be outraged is the non-competitiveness from the ownerships, because it's like they got the money, they know exactly where to spend it, and they know that the Dodgers are manipulating the system because of the deferred comp money deal. And so anybody could honestly use this model and use this system. So when we talk about a salary cap, I'm on the opposing side. I think if you put in a salary cap, you're going to benefit more of the owners, when I should be harping at my owner to spend the money as it should. When you think about this outrage, what's your opinion on it, and how can we better it? Because I think the Dodgers are showing us a system that works for other clubs, And other clubs, some of it kind of are utilizing it, and some of them not so much. How can we find the even playing field from here so then nobody feels outraged like Pittsburgh, Washington, even here in Denver with the Colorado Rockies?
Well, I think it's also guys are wanting to go to these places too. It's the money involved, but also, like you said, it's the owners. But you should be mad at the owners too, that they want a salary cap, but also that they're not spending the money. Like you said, all these contracts are very doable for every organization, or at least I would say 60 to 70% of them. It's just a matter of what the organizations are looking for. You can just tell by kind of who they hire, who are the systems, who they hire as the major league like head coach and managers and the pitching coaches and stuff like that. You can see kind of where baseball is shifting for those owners, where the Dodgers are getting all the best baseball players because not only are they going there to play in LA, so they're making their money. LA's already making their money back on all of it anyway. But right. 2, they're going there. They know they're going to win. And 3, like they're getting all the stuff like the marketing and everything else. And they're playing with a bunch of guys that know that how to play baseball. They're not just worried about analytics. They're using the analytics with the foundational part of baseball and putting guys who know baseball around them as well. And it's not just, hey, we're going to go just straight analytics based. We're using former players that know the grind of the game through these 162 games as well. And I feel like we're having a shift back. Like I went to the coaches convention not too long ago, and a lot of people I talked to said the game's going to hopefully shift back to hopefully a balance where you're getting more guys that used to play the game into the game, where they're helping with the guys that are analytics based to make the game better. Because you look at the game back in the 90s and 2000s and the numbers guys were putting up with guys batting 300 or 270 at least, 330, all these numbers and stuff with the home runs and the RBIs, but also playing very good baseball at the same time, where you saw a lot of 3-2 games, but you saw a lot of homers still and all this other stuff, but there's so much fundamentally sound baseball, where now it's shifted, I feel like so much to analytics, where all you see is guys trying to make highlights, which is like hitting home runs or striking guys out, which is they're all fun and games, but you see the games start being very boring except for those little things, because, you know, how long does it take for a guy to hit a home run every time? You know what I mean? It's not like guys are hitting home runs every at bat. It still takes like probably 4 to 7 at bats for a guy to hit a home run. So there's still a lot of things that could be happening in that time that could be interesting and great baseball as well. Like, you know, bunt situations, stolen bases, even though they're trying to put more stolen bases in the game, I think there's a way to do that too, which I feel like everything's shifting away from the pitchers, honestly, with how we're just doing things, how we're using the pitch clock and things of that nature. I don't think we should have a pitch clock that's still pretty short, because you can never, I told the guys all the time, you can't ever mimic that type of motion or that type of speed of a game or anything. Like there's nothing like throwing and pitching a baseball in a clutch situation and then literally having to go back up there and do it again in 15 seconds. Like,
yeah, there's a good point.
You're gonna hurt yourself. Like, honestly, like, it's crazy.
100%.
Really mm-hmm. So
yeah,
it's just, I feel like ultimately with the salary cap too, that's where there's going to be, I think there's going to be another lockout, because that's going to be the key issue. And fans honestly should be worried about their owners wanting to make these teams better and go spend and get these guys so they can build the better cultures and better teams and have those veterans that do cost this much money and be more appealing to these guys to come, instead of just being like, hey, we're not even going to be in the race to even sign this guy. Like the top of the market always knows there's like probably 5 to 6 teams that they're going to be able to choose from. And it's crazy to even think about that, but anybody could do it. It's just making your team appealing and building a culture there that people and free agents want to come to.
And it's funny because, you know, living here in Colorado, I mean, I know how the Montforts pretty much work, but, you know, to me, it's like you were just in the postseason multiple times, you know, in the last span of years, and you're in the NL West with the Dodgers, the Padres, the Giants. You can make it happen, but it's like when I hear this owner reminisce about glory old baseball in Coors Field, you know, it's 70 degrees and the sun sets here in Colorado. I'm like, yeah, it's great and all, but when are we going to get competitive? That's the only thing I'm like, that's what you're missing. But no, these are great points. And, you know, hopefully they'll figure this out, because I don't see this be an NBA situation. NBA is a different beast, because they're having more of a G League and a international cesspool problem, because a lot of our domestic stars. Now, I might get better because of college hoops with the NIL and all the rest of it, that we can find the balance that just like the NFL and college football do. So they'll eventually get there, but I don't think baseball is going to get to that point of what the NBA is dealing with. So I watched this team in the World Series in the past year, and a former club of yours who played. Toronto, they were scrappy. The fact that they led the league in hits, and now they're dealing without Bo Bichette, which can be a little bit trickle with their lineup. But they have their star. They paid him warmly, which as they should have. And now you're building these guys through the systems, and you're also building them through free agency. And I know it took them to Game 7, with how exciting that it was for them to not come away with another championship on their belts. But you got to think, they play competitive. They're close to the tier, and you got Seattle that's cooking. You got a couple of other teams in the American League. How do you kind of outlook the Blue Jays going into 26 on their minds, knowing we got only Game 7 in this position, but now we need to take it further to maybe potentially get back into the big dance?
I think, honestly, they had so many chances to win it, right?
Yeah.
Realistically, for me, they had a lot of chances to win it, but I've said it in the interviews I've had and the podcasts I've been on since the World Series. I've said, that's just the difference of the Dodgers versus the Blue Jays in that situation, where those guys in the Dodgers have been in those situations so many times that they took advantage of the little mistakes that the Blue Jays made in big situations, right? So that's kind of what happened. But losing Bo, I kind of called that after they signed and gave all that money to Cease, that it was kind of, you could have probably managed that a little bit better. I think Bo should have been the Blue Jays' first concern in that, because Bo's a heartbeat of that team too. And you're losing Springer eventually, because Springer's just getting older. He's going to retire. You might lose guys. You might lose some of these guys that were still part of the core that's been there to get you to Game 7. So if you don't get these guys back and you lose Bo, that's a tough situation. But I feel like that's just how the ball's rolling right now. Guys are taking shorter deals to kind of bet on themselves and gamble on themselves, and teams are throwing money at them. I think knowing that the CBA is about to happen, so guys are trying to get as much as they can before it too. But they're gambling on themselves to get another big payday after that. And even if you don't, you've already had your one big payday, so you can go in and the market's set for you at that point. You're not going to take so much drastically less, because you're never going to play, hopefully, that bad where you have to take drastically less to do that. But I think for the Blue Jays, they're going to be a scrappy team again. But I think that losing Bo hurts like so much. People don't understand. I was in that locker room. I saw Bo, even though people don't give Bo credit for like him being a vocal leader and things like that. Bo still led in a lot of different ways, and a lot of guys saw that. And losing Bo, I think it's going to have a ripple effect. I think they'll be fine ultimately. I think the pitching that they are gaining from it will help, but I just think that losing Bo in the AL East, which is for me one of the top 2 divisions in all of baseball, so losing him is going to be hard to really patch up, but I think they'll still be fine going forward. I don't know how much of a loss is going to ultimately be. Hopefully not a huge loss. Hopefully they do get another chance at a crack at a championship again, but I think losing Bo, that's huge for me. And that's just because I know who Bo is, and I love Bo to death. And I'm glad he did get paid. But him being in Toronto would have been ending, being his whole career with him and Vladdy, and actually winning a championship there would have been. I feel like that would have been the ultimate thing they should have done. Absolutely.
So an interesting team, and I talked about this last year when the trade deadline happened, and just before it. But the San Francisco Giants, they get Rafael Devers. Now, I was saying this up and onto the record that I felt like this was a little bit of a reality check, in my opinion, when it came to Devers from this point of view, because Boston made it into the postseason. They had Roman Anthony, they had Jaron Duran, they had a lot of these youngsters. So they felt like we can still compete with these guys without him. And I felt like when he first got to San Francisco and jabs were thrown, I was like, yeah, Boston's not going to take that. They're going to want to get into the postseason and prove something to just give it more fuel of motivation. Now, the Giants are an interesting team. I mean, they ended up in third place in the NL West. Now they are at least at 500. And I feel like they needed to fix up a bit of the consistency in the lineup. Now you got Jung Ho Lee, you got Matt Chapman, and Willie Adames. But I think they've got enough of the firepower that they need. But now it's just being consistent all throughout 162 games a year. But, playing in this organization, you kind of think of it starting pitching. They've got a couple of guys that they have already solidified. They could add a little bit more. But then it's ultimately how the importance of the relief pen that's going to be a big factor for them moving down the stretch. How do you kind of see this with San Francisco as far as we got a power bat? We now need to find the consistency and get better with our pitching situation if we want to make it into that postseason punch for the wild card or above.
I think that's a great question, but I think they'll same thing that you feel like they're gonna probably develop some of the guys that they have as starters in the organization as probably relief guys, which is what I'm thinking is gonna happen. And so therefore they're gonna build from the relief on the inside, and they might go add a piece here or there just to solidify that if they have a postseason opportunity. But I think, like you said, they have enough firepower on the offensive side and a core now that's gonna be there for a while that they can build around and add to and develop through the system to. I mean, their top 10 prospects should be able to fill in and pipe through some of these holes that they might have on offense on the offensive side, which you've seen it so far. They have, but it's again, you're in the NL West, AL East, NL West. Like, you're in dogfights every day, and it's being consistent and who's going to last the longest. And just, I think they'll be fine. They'll add some pieces to that pitching staff. It's getting a relief core. They have their core starters, but they're going to find some more. It's just back end starters, back into the pen, really. That's the name of the game when it comes down to September and October. It's who's got the best pen and who's got the best 4 or 5 guy. Because once you start getting to those long series, the 5-game, 7-game series, you start relying on your 4 or 5 guys to either be in the pen to help you get some innings and give you quality innings and go through their lineups because of their ability to, or the back ends normally throw in multiple innings. Right, those are the guys that you relied on. So I think they'll add some pieces, or they'll develop a couple guys through the system, which I'm pretty sure they probably have. I haven't checked in on their system in a while. I've actually been in the midst of, building my own kind of business. That I applied for some coaching jobs, didn't hear back from any teams, which kind of weird in the first place. I don't think it's weird, but again, that's how baseball is right now. It's more analytical than guys that have played, and I just got done playing, even though I did coach last year as well. But I feel like going through their organization, they're going to have some guys that are going to be on the cusp of either being great starters that are going to be 1 or 2s that they're going to slide into 4 or 5s at the beginning, or they're going to be able to slide some guys into that relief role that are going to be important guys at the September, October phases that are going to be able to give them multiple innings in the playoffs if they make it that far. But again, being in NL West, being in dogfights every day against the Padres, against the Dodgers, when the Rockies figure it out, with the Rockies, you know what I mean? And then you have the Diamondbacks, who were just in the World Series a couple of years ago, and they're on a march to get back there again because they know what it tastes like now. You're in a fight every day when you're playing against your division, and those games matter. You normally see 2 or 3 teams from the NL West in the playoffs every year. So you're going to have to face probably one of your rivals, I would say, probably in the divisional series or the championship series, to go to the World Series every year. So you just try to piece it together as best you can, see what's available at the trade deadline, see what pieces you have. But I think they have the core that they need now. Buster's done a great job of piecing that team together, that they're going to have much work to do, and they have time at this point. Like I said, that core is there for, I think, the next at least 6-7 years. So they're going to have some opportunities in the next 3 to 5 at least to either go to a World Series or be in a championship series in the next few years. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, but I think they're on the way there. It's going to be interesting to see the way baseball rolls back, or what they need to piece together to make that team better in the next few years.
Well said. So 2 final questions here for you. So I'm looking at one particular team that I feel like time is kind of against them in this point, because with the Dodgers regime right now, and this team won a World Series in 2021, and they got a lot of question marks. First and foremost, Brian Sticker's out. They got a new manager. What do you think is the timeline? Because they suffered a bunch of injuries, and then the inconsistencies just got worse down the stretch. What's the timeline right now with Ronald Acuna and the Atlanta Braves? Because this team, they've got some really good players. And I understand, too, where no Dansby Swanson, you're trying to find that middle of the infield next to Ozzy Albies. But, I mean, you got the Phillies who are just constantly stacking up their lineups because they're on a timeline, too.
Yeah,
like,
100%.
What could we really say about, the Braves? And what is something that's going to go through their minds depending on what the start of the season looks like, and then as they get closer into trade deadline, and then have to come to the harsh conversations down the stretch of what we need to figure out of the future?
I think the trade deadline is going to be a very big time in the 2026 Braves. I think that's going to be a very big timeline for them, because it's going to be how do they play up until then, because they do have a couple key injuries that are supposed to last until May right now. So it's how do you plug those in, who's coming back, who's going to be healthy, because kind of like where the Giants are getting to, the Braves did before. They had a solid core that was there for 6-7 years, or getting to the first couple years of their 6-7 year span. They win some games, win some championships, and now they're on the back end. And people don't understand how much energy, physically, mentally, everything else it takes when you go to the playoffs every year. People don't understand, it's such a short time that you have of an off season every year. It's such a mental grind that you go through every year with that. And then you have to really get back into doing it again. And you just suffered such a huge defeat a lot of times in those situations, right? So with the Braves, their core is still there, and they still have, I think, how many years does Acuna have on his deal? I think it's 3.
I think about 3 years, yeah.
So they still have 2 or 3 years left with Acuna. They have years with, Strider. They have a couple years with Harris too. They have a couple years with a few guys, right? So their core is still going to be there a little bit, and their starting shortstop is now hurt until May. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens to them up until the trade deadline. Everybody gets healthy and they play good ball and they stay in the thick of it up until the trade deadline. It's going to be interesting to see what pieces they are missing to make that team get over the hump again, especially in NL East. But also, I think if they're at the back of the pack or they struggled a little bit or they've had some more injuries, I think I said it last year. I think this year they get rid of Acuna. You see what's out there for, or at least you test the waters to see what's out there for Acuna at the trade deadline. Because then you can build around that again. You can get, at this point, if he's having another MVP type season again, you let him go, get a lot of pieces around him to build, to keep this core that you do have already for the next few years after Acuna is supposed to be leaving, to stack on top of those. And now you have an even deeper core than before. Get some more starters, get a couple more outfielders, get a middle of the infield type bat that you can use that's going to be a shortstop that you can move around to either center, not center, but either right or left again. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. AA's smart over there, though. He's done such a great job, and people want to go play in Atlanta. People want to live in Atlanta. People love baseball in Atlanta. People love sports in Atlanta, right? And again, that's how you sell the culture, and for these ownerships to find people that are going to help sell these teams that fans should want owners to spend more money in. Okay, find a GM that's going to be able to sell, but also he's putting people around him that are going to help see what's going to be best for these guys going forward, to make sure that they're getting the best of everything that they want, to make sure they do want to, again, that they do want to be there. You see a lot of times the people in places that don't spend a lot of money, people don't necessarily want to go play there either. And there's like a reason why. There's always a coincidental thing for some reason on those points, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, and Georgia, it's a great place wherever you are, up and in Atlanta or Athens or a lot of places, man. I mean, I've only gotten to as close as Atlanta's airport. That's about as close as I can get. But my brother lives up there. He says he loves it. It's open season. And, that's the way you got to sell it. It's a beautiful spot. And yeah, I love what the Braves do, because they remind me so much of the way baseball is played, the way it should usually be played. So it'll be interesting. This 26th season is going to be a lot of fun, though. The World Baseball Classic, then the 26th season. I love every bit of this. Sports in 2026 is going to be immaculate, and I'm all for it. We're all geared up. Jay, appreciate you for coming on by, man. Thank you so much for taking the time. We'll definitely see you soon, especially with spring training around the corner. All hopes that you get up and into a coaching job, man, especially for pitching coaching. It's a lot of these pitchers with development and consistency, it's important, and I'd love to see what these new bloods and new generation of pitchers that we can find here in the Major League Baseball League as well. Take care, my friend. Appreciate you, man.
100%. Thanks, Jake. It's much appreciated to be on here again. Like I said, anytime you need me, I'll always be around, man.
Absolutely, man. You bet. All right. Well, we're shifting around the corner, heading up over into the NFL, and Pat Williams, 14 years in the league. We got a lot to discuss about it. Hall of Fame inductions, so much to come around, and Super Bowl 60 preview. So joining us, Big Pat Williams on the show. So I started the show off with this here, and obviously with the discussion of Bill Belichick, not in as a first ballot Hall of Famer. Now, I understand everyone getting outraged because of just the situation itself, but that doesn't mean that Bill is not a Hall of Famer. He very much is. It's just not today. So I think about this, like when you look into the Hall of Fame, the resumes and all the rest of it, what are kind of some key factors you looked at with this? Because to me, I felt like there were about 4 different factors that came into this, but I also looked at the even playing field when it came to years of eligibility between the coaches and the players. What were your thoughts on this?
My mind's?
Yep.
Oh, mine was, man. I think they just, know what I'm saying, it just basically was outraged because Belichick he got the numbers. I don't care what he did off the field. That's the only thing I don't like about the NFL. And then they got people voting and stuff on it, and they go off what you did off the field, not on the field. You know what I'm saying? It's about what you did on the field, not your life, really. It's all about what you achieved while you was in the NFL on the field.
Right. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, like I said, I've had this kind of discussion when it came to, the Cooperstown Major League Baseball Hall of Fame, because it was some of the votes in which the baseball writers, I feel like I questioned so much of just like, what exactly are you looking at from context perspective? Because it's just like these guys clearly that you have still left up on the list are in fact, no doubt, Hall of Famers. You tell me a name, and the problem is too is like the voting aspect of things, because we deal with this in our everyday lives with every 4 years with our presidency. We deal with this now with just the Hall of Fames in every major sport, but it's not, the structure's not straightforward. It's like if you told me a name, right? You told me Bill Belichick, Hall of Famer, 100%. You told me like Barry Bonds, Hall of Famer, absolutely.
Case closed. Because I'm still mad about Barry Bonds. He ought to be in there.
Yep.
Because I don't care what he was doing. It don't make you hit that ball like that. You gotta have eye coordination for to hit that ball like he hit the ball. I don't care if you taking something, you ain't taking nothing. It cannot make you hit the ball like that.
100%, man. And he had the quickest swing.
And then it's all about people, you know what I'm saying? Like the reporters doing these votes. If they don't like you, they gonna vote for you. Mm-hmm. Like every team got, I think, one main reporter for like votes. So if they don't like you, they don't pass it on, man. We ain't vote for him. I don't care what his stats is. I don't care what this is. Mm-hmm. So they're not gonna vote for you.
Yeah. So we got now a Super Bowl 49 rematch in Super Bowl 60 with the Patriots and the Seahawks. I have a lot of respect for Mike Vrabel. I think he's a great coach, gritty, knows exactly how to utilize every player, and players love him as a coach.
Yeah.
And to getting as far as they were, because a lot of the question marks were, have they faced against one of the toughest teams in the league? And they faced against 3 of the top 5 to top 10 defenses in the playoffs to get to this point. And then I look on the other side, Seattle, where it's nostalgic because for a few reasons. Number one is defensive coach who's young, but all these players are energized. They got fresh legs. They're strong, and they get after the quarterback. The other thing is that cover 3 of the secondary with Nick Emenwari and the rest of them is so nasty. So I feel like this, even though it's a rematch, it has a different storyline to me because Seattle, Sam Darnold, he deserves every credit that given to him because of where they are and where he got to thus far to be here. So I think of it as like, Tampa when they had Brad Johnson as a quarterback. They made it through. He made the throws, talented players, but also had a great defense up and around him. Yeah. How do you kind of see this Super Bowl outlooking? I think Seattle, they're the toughest team with the youngsters, but New England does have the brains and the minds to find ways to outsmart their opponents.
Yeah, but I'm rolling with now. I think Seattle going to get him because Sam Darnold play enough. Like he don't try to make the big plays. He like Sam Darnold make the smart plays, and they defense always put them inside the right field positions. So I'm going with Seattle on this one because I already like Sam Darnold because I wish he was signed back with Minnesota, the Vikings, but I don't think any different there. He had an offensive line. Now I'll tell everybody, I say Sam got offensive line. If he get offensive line, he gonna be good. And Vikings ain't had now. They was killing him. Listen, the Vikings. So now he got offensive line, so he can make all the smart throws.
Absolutely. So discussing with the former teams you played for, so one of them, this is going to be interesting of a change in 2026 with the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen. And one of my big things is Sean McDermott. I don't mean any disrespect in this regard, but I feel like with his position and how long he's been in the league, he feels a lot like a modern day Marty Schottenheimer where he'll get up there, but is close, but no cigar. But defensive minded coaches, it is tough because if you got a young coach like a Saleh or a McDonald or someone that elevates and has the right hand man next to him to handle the offense, I feel like his match made in heaven. But some of them, they tend to kind of pull the reins depending on schematics and situations. Because I understand you got to defense is always crucial in these games when you got to win the big games. But with Buffalo, they elevate Joe Brady. And to me, I already saw this coming where they needed an offensive coach, but it's not Brian Dable. He's now in Tennessee, which is interesting, but they elevate Joe Brady. And my thing is, Josh only has an X amount of time, but it's also where Buffalo has to address this too. How do you kind of see this? Because now this was the opportunity for Josh Allen to do it, and unfortunately came short. I mean, how much time does Buffalo have until it's only going to get tougher from here?
See, like at the end of the day, like they're going to get tougher now because I was mad because they fired the coach. I said, "How the fuck y'all fired the coach for? He already put y'all in position for to win the game, and then like it ain't coach's fault that his players always get hurt. Later type of season, so he be out of players. So y'all give him an opportunity to win, and then the damn call he called in that game, those were bad call. Those were catches, not no interception. Yep. So I think like he always every time Buffalo get in the playoffs, like all his players get hurt on he get key players hurt on defense, key players hurt on offense, so they always go in short-handed like every year. But he put them in a position to win every year though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I agree with that because it's like there's times in which like you kind of think about where do you really balance it when it comes to coaching schemes, quarterback play, all those things. And then not to mention, I mean, injuries, it's inevitable in the league. It's bound to happen because you work your bodies 24/7 and you're trying to stay healthy all throughout the years, taking contacts, different workout plans. It's tough. So we'll see. I mean, this is going to be interesting for what next season brings, but hopefully there might be some new changes that come up and into here and whether they're positive or it could take them a different direction. So Minnesota, so I was very surprised for a number of reasons. I was really dead wrong when it came to the NFC North with the predictions because I had Minnesota winning the division for a few reasons. Number one is I love Brian Flores' defense. I think getting the key players in defense, getting after it, and shutting down opposing offenses was one key. The second key was how healthy was J.J. McCarthy going to be, added in the confidence of Kevin O'Connell, the head coach and offensive mind coach, which was going to help him build. But Minnesota now has a tough task at hand to going into next year because, yes, Justin Jefferson, star player, absolutely, you got to make him happy. What do they need to do right? Because one thing is JJ has to build the confidence, and not only that, but also be the healthiest in his state for him to be able to make the plays, make the connections, and find the chemistry to take that further, especially when Green Bay, their defense with Micah Parsons, Detroit, they're pissed. They want to get back into it. And then we just watched Chicago get as far as they did. What does Minnesota got to do from here?
Man, Minnesota got to fix their offensive line. That's been the same thing every year, the trend every year, offensive line. But I told everybody, Minnesota should have kept Jones. They ain't signed Sam Darnold back, but they should have signed Jones back because I'm saying JJ, I understand he y'all first round pick, but JJ never played, so don't put the team in his hand right now. He never played. I don't care about preseason. I said he never played a game, no real game, because I think preseason games don't even really count. Because when I played preseason, I played about 25%. I ain't how to play hard inside of preseason. But I'm just saying, man, I said, man, y'all should come quarterback. They need to get their offensive line fixed and then find some cornerbacks.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I agree with you. I think if they do that and Minnesota gets themselves back up and on track, then it'll be a lot better, especially when you think about cap flexibility, what they need to do now further down the road. That's something that I know is going to be important for them in the future. One last question before letting you go, because, like I said, this Super Bowl is going to be interesting. I like my chances with Seattle. And I mean, I've had the pleasure of watching you guys, growing up as a kid, watching the defense. You played with great guys, playing next to Kevin, and then Chad Greenway, Ben Lieber, Antoine Winfield, just amazing guys. And it's hard because there have been teams that have been successful getting over the hump, and some that just get that close. And it's hard because now it's like we put in a lot of the work. We're so motivated. When you think back to that, and I know that was a tough time, especially against New Orleans, but to go back to that, and especially for players up and coming, what they need to prepare for physically and mentally to make it further, to then taste the sweetness of the Lombardi trophy when it's there in front of them and what they worked so hard for all year long, especially when you got great defenses such as the team that you had yourself in your playing days. Like, what's kind of the motivator for some of these players, even when you go through a situation like that?
See, at the end of the day, man, you got to have a great coach, man. At the end of the day, you got to trust your coach and then love your coach and then want to play hard for your coach. That's what's going on now inside New England. They got a coach down there, Verbal is a coach he played before all the years, so he know how to treat his players. He know how to get his players to trust him, and then now his players playing hard from him. And stuff. So it was kind of up and down for us because that New Orleans game was easy. We got the first down, line up, run the ball, timeout, kick the ball, we out of there. But they don't call a fucking timeout, and then got 12 minutes on field, penalty, interception. The game should have been over. So that was just a common sense game. So I'm still mad about that game because that was common sense. Coach just line back up, run AP, timeout, field goal, we out of there. It was just, man, I say, man, that was just a dumb call. So, man, if you have, great coaches, man, you're going to play great for them.
100%. Yeah. And, and a lot of the players too, I mean, it's like they busted their tails all throughout from the start of the season and before it even starts, and then getting all the way up and in close to the finish line. It's the toughest road, but, it's situations like that asks you two questions. Does it further motivate to get you over the top and play at your absolute best, or is it just kind of where the line ends? And that's the tough part. But they constantly work, they constantly get prepared and motivated so that they can reach the top. Appreciate you for coming on by, Pat. It's going to be an interesting Super Bowl. I really do think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm pulling for Seattle up in this one, but I think we are going to get some spurts of some plays that may be pretty creative. And then at the same time, it's all going to be chess game from here on out. So love to see what's going to happen up from here. Appreciate you for coming on by, man, and sharing your expertise, man. Take care of yourself. Enjoy the rest of the week, and we'll see you soon, my friend.
I appreciate you having on, man. Thank you, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, there you go. And it really is, when you think about just the adversity, the tasks at hand, and further pushing forward, because again, this is always what it is, whether it's playoffs or, you look at the college football playoff as well. It's tough. It's tough for every team, and it's tough for a lot of players, and it's tough for a lot of coaches, but ultimately it's chess game, and you got to think about what you need to do next. But yeah, great stuff. And I love, here's the thing. I had a soft spot for that Minnesota defense. Kevin, Pat Williams, Chad Greenway, Ben Lieber, Antoine Winfield, and even just the offense as a whole. Adrian Peterson, the offensive line, like it was a lot of fun. So as of recently, as we close up the show, so a couple coaching changes. So first off, the Cleveland Browns finally found their head coach, but it's not quite as many people in Cleveland would have predicted. So the Cleveland Browns have hired Todd Monken, the former offensive coordinator for Baltimore, a division rival. This is an interesting hire for a few reasons, because to me, Todd Monken, I've watched his coaching scheme, and I've watched exactly the job that he had. And to me, Todd Monken, I think, can help the offensive side of the ball, but how creative can Todd Monken really be is the question. Because Baltimore, it's an interesting situation from there. Now, many people have discussed about what had happened with John Harbaugh in his final days in Baltimore. And I know many people, they have all said, hey, Jake, it's time. And I get it. I really get it. And Baltimore, it's going to be interesting watching with Jesse Minter as their new coach, young defensive-minded coach, but helps to elevate a lot of defensive players, because think about it. 2 years with the Chargers and Jim Harbaugh, he was primed to be a head coach, worked around with Derwin James, and now he's going to get Kyle Hamilton. So Todd Monken, what was kind of interesting in this point was there was, of course, some comments that felt like jabs to John Harbaugh, which is why I was like, well, if he was going to take the offensive coordinator job in New York, how is that going to honestly look like between the relationships of Harbaugh and Monken? Now, Todd Monken's been in the league for a long time. And I think right now Cleveland felt a lot like a cautionary tale when it comes to coaching carousels. Because does anybody want to deal with the sideshow with the Deshaun Watson contract? And I mean, you are getting Myles Garrett, but here's another issue too. After Todd Monken got hired, the reports on it was they completely went right over the head of Jim Schwartz, the defensive coordinator, who I felt like that if they promoted, I would have been fine with it. It would have felt a lot like a Joe Brady situation as a defensive coach. I'm serious. The fact of the matter is that bypassing and then, coming to this point where now Todd Monken's the head coach. It's just really interesting, in my opinion. I just think that nobody wanted this Cleveland job for multitude of reasons, and I understand, because you're having to deal with multitudes of people. You're having to deal with Jimmy Haslam. You're having to deal with the Deshaun Watson contract. Not to mention, I mean, how are you going to honestly build up Shedeur Sanders? I mean, now, granted, Monken's been around Lamar Jackson, but now you're dealing with Shedeur, and even that's going to be interesting of a tale itself. So I think it's interesting. It's not a sexy hire, in my opinion, with Todd Monken, but if he can turn things around a lot, especially with all of this stuff, then maybe he does have a fighting shot. Buffalo, they elevated Joe Brady. And so here's the deal. I really thought Brian Daboll was going to come back up and into this job. And instead, he bypassed it and is now joining forces with Robert Saleh in Tennessee and helping to build the future with Cam Ward. Hopefully get him some offensive weapons because he's going to need it. So I think Tennessee, they're going to look a lot different. Robert Saleh, after the job that he's done in San Francisco in the years that he's been, being there, leaving, and coming back, he knows how to handle the defense. And Brian Daboll, as an offensive coordinator, knows how to handle an offense, even with the stint in New York, where you got to have a run game. You got to have consistency up and on offense, even with Daniel Jones. So you had to work with what you needed. But Buffalo has an interesting trail in front of them because with Josh Allen, like time's ticking. And we know Buffalo is in a position where you're going to get Pat Mahomes and Kansas City back. You're going to get Joe Burrow and Cincinnati back. The Chargers just got Mike McDaniel. It's going to be interesting of the offensive plethora. Then Baltimore, Drake May in your division. That is going to be interesting in itself too. Now, I don't know about Miami with Jeff Hafley. That's one that kind of leaves a question mark, in my opinion. But Josh Allen, parts of this, he has to elevate this team. And we know it's all on Josh because with Joe Brady, offensive-minded coach, coached up in multitudes of the league, from college and pro. So it feels like this is a comfortability more than anything for Josh Allen. And he feels comfortable with them. I really thought Brian Daboll would have came back and had, been back and reunited with Josh because of the way in which that they carried out a lot of things. So unfortunately, that's not the case, but that's okay. I think Joe Brady, capable of the job. We've been discussing about it as far as a head coach is concerned, but we got to fix up that defense to get consistency in there. And then not to mention, you got to get a wide receiver in this room because Keon Coleman has had struggles top to bottom. And I love the dual tight end system that they have in Buffalo, but you got to get some playmakers. I mean, Khalil Shakir, really good as far as route creating, but over the top, outside the hash marks, all of those that you need to have. So Buffalo really has to figure that out. And I mean, you also got to have that consistent run game next to James Cook. So there's lots of it that it feels like Josh Allen has to put on a cape every time. But offensively, let's just hope that this elevates them even more. But you need to have a smart defensive coordinator to fix this up. And there's already a hot commodity right now. And that's Jim Schwartz, because now he's left Cleveland. And there are going to be some teams that are going to be kind of tasting it as an appetizer to see what they can get. But that'll shape up a defense. So, yeah, Buffalo has a lot of questions. So, interesting. Man, what a great show. Appreciate all of our guests that we had up and on here today. Jay Jackson talking baseball with us, and also former NFL defensive tackle Pat Williams joining us. I absolutely love every bit of it. We got more interviews along the way. Don't go anywhere next week. We'll have more interviews, more talk, and get us signed up for 60 of the stuff. Appreciate everybody for coming on by. If you want to enjoy the show, like, follow, and subscribe to the show. We are trying to get up and into monetization, and it's all because of you, the supporters, and the fans of the show. Let's hit our goals, guys. Appreciate everybody for being here. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next week.